On today's episode, we tell you how Senior Bowl declaree, interior defensive lineman out of Ole Miss, Walter Nolen, can secure himself as a top 20 pick in the 2025 NFL Draft with a dominant performance in Mobile. That and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. You know I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at TheTalentCode. Can you talk to him, baby?
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, and the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listener is greatly appreciated here. DP, today's show, we're talking Senior Bowl, man, and we're talking the trenches, right? The talk of the draft community has been that the trenches, the defensive line is deep. There's a lot of talent. This may be one of the best defensive line pulls that Senior Bowl director Jim Nagy has had, so it's a must that we talk about him. We're going to talk about three guys. We're talking about Ole Miss defensive tackle Walter Nolen, former five-star young man. Dion Walker, a guy who came into the season as defensive tackle one. Where does he rank now? And then a guy that was a five-star prospect. I recruited when I was at LSU from South Florida, went to Texas A&M, 6'5", 270, Shamar Stewart, edge rusher, plays everywhere for Texas A&M, honestly. Shamar Stewart. So, DP, let's start at the very top. Let's get into Ole Miss defensive tackle, Walter Nolen.
Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Keith, Walter Nolen transferred from Texas A&M after 2 years to Ole Miss and helped change and revitalize that defensive line for Lane Kiffin and gave them one of the better defenses and pass rush groups in the SEC. Listed at 6'3", 305 pounds. Walter Nolen on the season, Keys, 6 sacks, 3 QB hits, 26 pressures and hurries on the season. When you think about him going down to Mobile, Keith, this is to me, this is one of the best interior defensive linemen in this class. And it's crazy, Keith, because we have an elite prospect that is Mr. Mason Graham at the top of the draft, right? One of those blue chip guys. So when you think about him, everybody thinks there's just like a huge drop-off. I don't think there's a huge drop-off. He is, of course, the creme de la creme. But Walter Nolen is an absolute game wrecker on the interior defensive line. He's alignment versatile, plays wherever Lane Kiffin and that defensive coordinator needs him to play. But the hand usage, the quickness, the power, and he's to me, he's improved his run defense from going from Texas A&M to this year. I felt like this was a guy that's kind of did what we interview prospects during the draft season. We always say, hey, scout yourself. What do you need to improve on? I felt like the run defense was something he took more serious this year. I'm looking forward to seeing him in Mobile. What are some things you think he needs to do to kind of etch himself in stone as a top 20 pick? Because I think he has that type of ability, and he should be viewed like in that way.
Yeah, for him, it's going to come down to one-on-ones, pass rush, right? And I want to see how quickly, how quick, how powerful, how detailed his pass rush plan is, right? And he has to show that he's a high-end pass rusher. He's listed at 6'3", 305. So I would like to see his measurables, right? Like, is he 6'2" and a half? Is he 6'3", 315, or is he 6'2" and a half, 295, right? When I watched him, DP, the thing that I got from Walter was that we keep saying this, right? But I mean, Texas A&M was no different, but they put all these guys in different situations that you don't think is the most advantageous situation for him. So, like, I don't know if Walter Nolen is a two-gapping defensive tackle for me, right? Do I think he can hold up and he can survive? Yes, but the best versions of Walter Nolen is him in a 4-3 scheme, working upfield, being destructive, playing in a gap, and just getting after it, right? Using his athleticism, his power, his quick hands. Like, when he activates and he's confident in his pass rush plan, he's gonna beat you in 1.5 seconds, right? It's gonna be quick. It's gonna be pop, 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 done, right? And it's like, oh man, this is crazy. So I look at it and I want to see Walter Nolen in pass rush reps. I want to see his size. I do want to see how he holds up in a run, but I also just want like see his body profile. Like, what does he build? Like, if he is 295, is there a way to get him to 315? Right? I just want to see. I want to see it all, DP. And I just finished up Walter Nolen, and there were some games I had a first round pick on him, and then there were some games I had second round pick on him, right? But I'm land on a first round pick with him, and a lot of his success and what the ceiling is going to be for him is going to be dependent upon the situation that he goes to. Like I said, you tell me you putting Walter Nolen in a 4-3 scheme, I'm like, okay, cool. This guy's probably going to walk away with some Pro Bowls for you.
No, 100%. Ole Miss defensive lineman, Walter Nolen. I think he's probably a better fit, like as that 4-3-3 tech, where you get those single, in those single blocks and everything, those one-on-one opportunities. I agree with you. When you get to the Senior Bowl, your money, don't get me wrong, your money is made in 11-on-11s too. But how many times have we seen guys, whether it was Lad McConkey, Roman Wilson, our guy Tank Dell, you know what I mean? Prayers up for him coming back from that leg injury that he suffered this year. It was the one-on-ones where these guys dominated the competition, right? And we've seen that even, the offensive line, defensive line. Our guy, Jeremiah Johnson, right? He practiced 2 days 2 years ago, Keith. Dominated one-on-ones, and that was
Jermaine Johnson.
Yeah, Jermaine Johnson. Like, he went there, dominated two days, and it was just one-on-ones. That's where he made his money, and that's why he was a top 32 pick, and we felt like he should have been a top 10 pick the way he performed. His tape was good. He dominated the Senior Bowl, stuff like that. I think with Walter Nolen, for him, is like you said, the one-on-ones. When you get up against those interior offensive linemen, how quickly are you winning those one-on-one situations? How quickly can you deconstruct a block, get to the quarterback? What's your process by the second step? Do you know how you're going to win? Do you know how you're going to attack that guy? Like, I like watching guys after the first couple reps, because now you see how everybody plays. And it's like, are you one of those students of the game that you're watching your opponent? All right, he's kind of the heavy inside, his weight is distributed on the inside as an interior offensive lineman. So, I can kind of jab step there, then work back on the outside shoulder. How does he handle from a mental standpoint that? And then also when you get to those run drills, not just the team drills, but we've seen it, right? What was it? Was it Darius Robinson him and Tavondre Sweat in the how they attack duo blocks and how they dominated that rep, both of those guys, and those two totally different body types. You know what I mean? Like, when you're dealing with that, can you handle some duo blocks, right? Not saying we want you to handle it all the time, but there are going to be some teams that run duo in the NFL and want to run it up the middle and double team you and your teammate on the interior, and let the running back read the middle linebacker to figure out which one of these lanes am I going to hit based off of where that linebacker goes. Can you hold up at the point of attack there, or do we simply have to make sure we get you schemed up with a big defensive tackle like a Tavondre Sweat, those big burly guys that can play the zero, play the one, handle the double team, and enforce one-on-ones for you, so you can kind of have that dominant, advantageous rep. I'm looking forward to just seeing how he handles the run and pass game down in Mobile, especially when we get to 11-on-11s, Keith, because then when you got that interior offensive lineman has a bumper, he's got teammates, stuff like that, like, because the one-on-one reps are going to be good if you win and dominate those as an interior D lineman. But then when you go to team drills, it's like, well, I got to focus on, I can't just beat my guy. I got to know that left tackle, that center, you know what I mean, or that right tackle and center, depending on where he's lined up, they're going to be keying in on, I got my guy, but I'm also kind of close the inside path, if I can as well. How do you navigate that? How do you defeat that? How do you counter that? I'm looking forward to seeing all that from Walter Nolen.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it puts a hold right on you just being able to pin your ears back versus one-on-ones, and 11-on-11 drills is like, okay, I don't know if I'm about to get reach blocked. I don't know if this about to
Right.
be a dual block. I don't know if I'm about to get a wham block and I got to watch out for
Right.
some pulling guard, right? Like, so you're just a little bit hesitant to just run upfield and just know that it's a one-on-one situation. But DP, talking about one-on-ones, one guy that should stand out is Dion Walker, the defensive tackle from Kentucky. Let's talk about him next and what are the expectations for him at the Senior Bowl this year.
This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, and everything with 100% accuracy. All so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. This is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Dion Walker may have the most writing on a Senior Bowl performance, Keith, down in Mobile from the defensive line group out of Kentucky. I think Jordan Reed said he's actually measuring at 6'7", 340 pounds. That's just a massive human being, right? On the season, like last year, he had 8 sacks on the season. This year, everything took a dip. He had 0 QB hits this year, 4 sacks, so his sacks were cut in half. He had almost 40 hurries last year. He only had 18 this year. His snap count went down this year from 728 total to 540. So he wasn't on the field as much as he was last year. And Keith, I think for me, when I look at Dion Walker, I want to see him removed from that Kentucky scheme. We talk about this with Georgia and with Texas A&M. They move their guys around way too much. I've seen Dion Walker at 6'7", 345 stand up as an edge rusher, dropped off in the coverage. What in the world are we doing? Like, absolutely not, man. Like, I don't want that for him.
You know who? But you know, DP, you know who just made a case for that? It is going against our argument, and every defensive coordinator be like, see, that's why we draw that up. That's why we draw that up. Danny denies Sutton. When he comes up with the interception right in the game, like now every D coordinator like, hey, I got to drop my D in. If he's 270, I got to put him in coverage, right?
Right. Like, no, like, listen, leave that man on the defensive line, Keith. But they move him around so much. He plays 5 tech. He played 4-eye. So he played nose and 1. I want to see, like, what is his best position? Because the thing I struggle with him, Keith, is he at 6'7", 345? Does he need to be in the 4-3 even front scheme playing 3 tech? Like how we just talked about with Walter Nolen. And those are 2 totally different body types. One guy's listed at 6'3", 305. The other one's 6'7", 345. When I hear 6'7", 345, I'm thinking 1 and 0. But if your best bet and your best ball is played at 3 tech, it just creates a different conversation. So I think the one-on-ones are going to be big for him. We talked, I think you said he's like the lay 2, law 2 of hand usage at the defensive line group, which is a scary thought when you look at his size, but he knows how to win with his hands and with quickness. But the run, I think that's the running drills are going to be the biggest thing for him. Can you maintain, and I know it's hard because you're so big at 6'7", 345. Like, I get it. Your pad level is never going to be as low as people would want it to be. But can you keep it low enough to where you don't surrender natural leverage immediately off the snap? Like, you're not popping up like a jack in the box, right? And exposing your chest and getting moved off the ball. Can you stop the run? Can you hold up at the point of attack? Physically, Keith, I think he's got the power to do so. It's more so the pad level and being able to strike with a good angle and being able to set that point of attack and reset the line of scrimmage. I think the running drills are going to be more impactful for his draft stock more than the passing drills, because everybody knows he's an outstanding pass rusher.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that, with the running drill situation. And that's why I'm even honestly, it's gonna be between the reps for me. getting the coaching. Like, how does he absorb the coaching?
Oh, yeah.
Because if you have something that you need to improve, right, then I need to see that you're willing to improve it. These NFL coaches are going to want to show, like, hey, I can get you better day by day, right? And I want to see, like, how does he absorb the coaching? Like, does he want to get better at run defense, right? Like, because we could say, okay, cool, well, yeah, he's 6'7", 345 pounds, but you can't make anybody do anything, right? So if he's still like, hey, honestly, I like playing D-line because I like rushing the quarterback, well, then I can't make you become a better run defender, right? Like, that has to be innate, right? It's probably the same thing. I know you probably the equivalent to that is like pass blocking for a running back, right? Like, they can teach all the technique, but you gotta just want to throw your head in there, right? Like you have to want to do that. Like, that's not technique. That's just something you want or want not to do. Either one. So that's what I'm be looking out for Dion Walker is just his body language, mannerisms. How is he handling himself? How is he accepting coaching? Because that is the glaring need, right? If this was just strictly off of pass rush upside and who can win one-on-ones, then he's probably a top 3 defensive tackle in this class, right? But the problem with that is that there are 2 things to playing defensive football. There's the passing part of it, but then there's also the rushing side of it. And as if you're defensive lineman, you better be able to hold up because you're responsible for at least one gap every single play, right? And so if you're tapping out or you don't want any parts of it, if you're not showing any willingness to fight, then that's a problem for my defense. Like, if I'm a defensive coordinator, why would I want that, especially high in the draft?
No, 100%. And I think, Keith, I pulled up mock draftable because, like, when you think about his body type, there aren't many guys that's listed 6'7", 340, 50 pounds in the NFL, right? And the guys from a height standpoint, you think about defensive tackles, you think about
I think the best one may be Calais Campbell, right? Like, he may be the best example of being 6'6" plus.
100%. Calais Campbell. Then you think about like some throwback names. Remember the Jacksonville duo, John? I think was it John Henderson and John Henderson. I think they had Marcus Stroud out of Georgia. He was 6'6", 321. The only guy that I could find that was 6'7", 350, like in the 350 range, was he played for the Steelers, Daniel McCullers. He was literally 6'7", 352 pounds. But this was a guy that, you talking about over his career, I think he played 7 years in the league. He only had 2.5 sacks. That's not going to be Dion Walker. Like, Dion Walker can actually rush the passer. So I think the point you made about handling coaching is big. I'll never forget, like, what was it, 2 years ago when Keon White was there in Mobile? And I remember watching him, like, do a drill incorrectly. And the coach was like, no, you did it wrong. And instead, you as a former coach, you've seen guys where you told, hey, you messed that rep up, you didn't do it right. And certain guys like, okay, coach, show me how to do it. Some guys like, they get upset about it. Like, he was like, well, what did I do wrong? I thought I did it right. Coach showed him how to do it. He did it correctly the second time around, got an attaboy pat on the head, and then he gets drafted with second round to the New England Patriots by Bill Belichick. I said, and that rep, probably being able to get that information and see how he handles coaching, that kind of got him drafted to a strict coach like a Bill Belichick, because he is going to tell you, hey, you messed this up. You guys did this wrong. And he wants those culture guys. So Dion Walker having to deal with the coaching, especially in the run drills. Like I said, that pad level, just kind of figure out what's comfortable for you. You know what I mean? Maybe, and honestly, maybe it might be something with alignment, with your pre-snap alignment. Maybe you're a little bit off the ball rather than being directly up on it, to where you're in a 4-point stance. You're kind of loaded back on your hips a little bit, to where you can spring forward and be able to climb up and get your feet underneath you to drive guys backwards.
Yeah, I thought about that, DP. I literally thought about that a couple of minutes ago. Like, would it be a matter of changing his stance? But the thing is this, and I'm not saying this, like, he may be able to do it, but this is just what I was thinking, is that, hey, we may be able to do that, right? Like, for situations. But the problem is, we know this, right? Like, that offensive players study film too. So he has to do that every single rep, because he can be the tail sign of, oh, okay, if he's in a loaded stance, it's a run, like he feels like it's run. And you know what I'm saying? If he's in another stance, he feels like it's pass. Like, I know what to expect from him as, he's playing defensive line. So it's just a lot, DP. And I think that's going to make this fun and intriguing. But I'll tell you this.
Do you think he should drop some weight, Keith? Like, you remember how Jordan Davis came in to the combine? He was like 340, 330, ran the 4.7, but at I think at Georgia, that he said he weighed close to 360. playing that joint, even though he was still a freak athlete there too.
I have
you
a
know
question.
what I mean?
How much we think Jordan Davis weigh right now?
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Jordan might be back at 360. DP, we don't.
That's a really good point, Keith. You know what I mean? Like
he did a crash diet for a couple $1 million, which I'm not mad at him. I need to go on a diet too, right? So, but no, I mean he can afford to, but I guess you know what the problem is, DP, that I think even if he does lose weight, is that going to directly help you become a better run defender, right? Or maybe does he lose weight and he just become an extremely heavy defensive end, right? Like a 4-3 defensive end, a base defensive end. So that's another question mark, because if he is 6'7", let's say he gets down to 305, 315, right? But being 6'7", can he be a base defensive end for NFL team?
I want to see his body type too, Keith. Like
yeah, that's the other point. Yeah, like how much?
I really want to see how much like weight is around the midsection area and
all
stuff
that
like
stuff.
that.
Yep, 100%.
Can he do it? Can he do what T'Vondre Sweat did last year and outpower people, part the Red Sea and do all that freaky stuff we saw? And it translated to the Titans. He did it in the NFL, threw guys around like they were rag dolls, and these are grown men with families. Can Dion Walker do the same thing? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. That's what we're gonna find out, right? We will find out in a couple of weeks at the Senior Bowl. But DP, let's keep this thing going, man. With this is one of the most intriguing prospects, because I feel like there's very little known about him as far as surface level, but that's edge rusher. Well, play it all. We told you how Texas A&M do with their defensive lineman. Plays every position along the defensive line. Listed at 6'6". I'd say 260 at the top of the show. He's listed at 6'6", 290. I'm sorry. He was a defensive end coming out of high school. Former 5-star kid, Shamar Stewart. Let's talk about Shamar coming up next.
I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending a game with my friends. The energy and the excitement, they were unforgettable. Now Gametime has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite live events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And you know how hard it can be when you go to an event with a party of 4 or 5, even 6 people, and trying to find seats consecutive, side by side. That's why you use Gametime Picks to filter through the fluff, and you don't have to check out thousands of tickets to find your perfect offer. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the redeem code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's Gametime. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday. Shout out for being our everydayer. Shamar Stewart, Keith, you said 6'6", 290 pounds, listed on Texas A&M's website, I believe. This is a freaky, like, athletic guy. Like, when I was watching him, he does some stuff that where he, honestly, Keith, you said 260, he moves like he's 260. Like, you know what I mean? He doesn't move like a 290 pounder.
The 290, I still question. I'm like, this guy doesn't look 290. And it's just because of how he moves. Now, he is extremely, like, muscular guy, big frame, everything. But it's like they maxed it out. Like, shout out to their strength and conditioning, because they stay with these big body edge rush hybrid. You're talking about your DeMarvin Leals, your Michael Clemens, right? Like, it's year after year that they're churning these guys out. Looking at Shamar Stewart and just at the Senior Bowl, DP, when talk about, I think he's a question mark for everybody, but he's a guy that has the most to gain because one, I think he's physically going to look impressive. You can watch the film and see that he's athletic. And then third of all, you if he shows inside at 290 pounds, he can kick inside to the defensive tackle position, and people may want him as another 3. He can be another 3 tech in this situation. So I think he walks in there with a question mark, but he has so much to gain. Like, and I'm saying like in a positive way. And I'm not even saying he has so much to gain like it's in negative. I'm saying that like he has so much just to, I guess, place himself like as a top 50 guy again. Like he just come out there and perform where he was a relative unknown in this draft class to now being one of the top names in this draft class.
I think it might have been the South Carolina tape I was watching, and he was reduced down kind of into that 3-4 eye alignment. And I think they ran the ball they ran the ball to the opposite side. So they ran away from him. but he was reduced down into that kind of three tech 4-eye, and the explosiveness I saw from off the ball when he got his hands into the interior offensive lineman, he immediately drove him back like 2 yards into the backfield. And I was like, man, if this was a play side run, that was completely blown up. But then you see him on the edge. He like there's times he's in the 3-point stands, a 4-point stands, he's standing up. And I can't remember which game it was I was watching, but like they ran like it may have been a toss sweep or something out there to him, to his side. He kind of crashed down and then reversed field and ran the ball carrier down from behind. I'm like, this dude shouldn't be like, you know what I mean? But he's so
I can't
well
remember what
built.
game. I know the exact play you're talking about too. I can't remember the game it was.
And it was just kind of freaky to see him
just
like
watching him
go
close
from
to the sideline. Yeah.
To go from engage with an offensive lineman to I just ran you down at the sideline. You know what I mean? And so for him, and I know numbers is a part of this thing, but some people allow it to dictate how they view certain guys. He only had 2 sacks on the season, but he was a consistent pressure guy. 33 pressures on the season. He had a forced fumble and 4 QB hits. I think one-on-ones is going to be major for him. Just showing his pass rush process and ability.
Upside.
Yeah, that upside playing one-on-one, because with his burst and explosiveness, the power and jolt that he has in his hands to shock offensive linemen and blockers. I'm gonna tell you right now, Keith, this is not a guy that I want unless I have a George Kittle. You know what I mean? A George Kittle, a Gronkowski type. I don't want a tight end blocking him. Like I think if you're an NFL team and Shamar Stewart gets a start against you, you want to run the ball, you better make sure that tackle's making contact, because he's going to stand up and move a tight end. And a lot of these tight ends nowadays don't block anyway. You know what I mean? Or don't block well because they're not, they're like, you look at Brock Bowers, he's like 6'3", like 230. I'm not going to want Brock Bowers trying to block Shamar Stewart. Like, no, let's put you out the slot. Let's let you crack back on some backers. I don't want you doing that. Same thing with, Travis Kelce is one of the GOATs, but I don't want Travis Kelce blocking him either. Like, this dude is that powerful and that strong, and it's like that country grown man strength, where it's just like, if you ever figure it out as a pass rusher, this dude's going to be dangerous, man.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we talked about that with Jack Sawyer, just finding these base, 4-3 defensive hands. I mean, he can be another one, right? You're talking about elevating his draft stock into being, like we said, a top 50-ish type football player. All he has to do is win some pass rush reps, be dominant, right? And if you had one of those, even at this size, even somewhat of a Jermaine Johnson, like you talked about, right? Yeah. Defensive end performances, which he's a much bigger body profile. If he has just one of those type of performances, then like that's a rep.
No, 100%. Whether it's at edge, playing interior defensive line, and I think they're gonna allow him to do both, right? Like allow him to play that 3-tech 4-eye, but also let him stand up on the edge. And if he can dominate in both spots, like I always say, Keith, the more you can do, the better. And that's how this is going to help your draft stock. I just think, like you said, it's not a negative that he has so much to gain. This is a simple fact that it feels like he's relatively unknown to a lot of the draft community. And this is going to be their first real experience and exposure to Shamar Stewart. And he's got a big opportunity because I think he's going to test well, too, at the combine. Like, you know what I mean? As freaky of an athletic mover he is, I think he goes out there and tests well. He looks agile, does everything he needs to do there on the field drills and running the 40, 3-cone, the figure 8 drill with the loops and everything. If he can do all of that well, again, similar to Jack Sawyer, teams are going to look for these base defensive ends. These 6'6", 6'5", 270, 280, 290 guys that can play all 3 downs. He's one of those guys.
I agree 100% with DP. That wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find me on find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Guys, coming up on tomorrow's show, we're going to get into kind of do some rankings. We're going to go ahead and rank these running backs, man. We know Ashton Jeanty is at the top of everybody's board right now, but he's not the only one that should be at the top. Marion Hampton is right there on his heels, chopping at the bit. We'll go talk about these running backs on tomorrow's show and give you our top 10 RB rankings heading into the Senior Bowl. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.